I'm Jane, welcome to my glass studio. Today is the 9th of May and we've got quite a lot on today. So first we have to fire the blue kiln. So this was packed yesterday. So we've got some Werther's Originals in here. We've also had a lot of Avatar orders, including the new White Lotus charm. So these were all made yesterday. They went into the freezer and they thawed overnight. So now that all the water has completely evaporated, we can now fire it. So we'll give this a close. See you tomorrow. This will fire at 750 degrees and be ready to unpack tomorrow. So that's it. That's all we have to do for this one. So first job is done. Next job for today is flame working practice. So yesterday I made another Alice in Wonderland chess piece. And this one is the oyster, which I'm very proud of. I'm absolutely delighted with how this came out on the first run. But I'm going to make this probably about 5 more times to get a bit more practice in and perfect it. I think the shell could be a bit more closed in to make it look more realistic. It's also a little lopsided, but the size compared to the rest of the pieces is actually fantastic. And this one is actually made out of soft glass, whereas these ones are all made out of borosilicate. So soft glass has a much lower melting temperature, which means there's a lot less heat needed in order to melt the glass. And the color options are far better too. So for the base, I use this transparent blue here, which looking at the rod doesn't look very dark. But as the glass gets thicker, it becomes more saturated. Now for the inside part of the shell, this is actually like a rose quartz pink, which starts off white, but then as it's heated, it has this pinkish hue to it. The pearl is actually just an opaque white. And the shell is actually this marbled kind of granite colored glass. This is lots of colors kind of blended into one stick, as you can see in the end here, which is absolutely perfect for making this oyster shell. So I'm going to make them all pretty much exactly the same. I do actually have some double helix glass to make the pearl with. So this is double helix, and this is actually extremely expensive glass. And it has a brilliant quality where you melt it and you use an oxidizing flame, and then it gets this metallic finish on it. So the glass can appear to look silvery or gold or coppery. And this one was actually part of a test batch, so I haven't used this one yet. So I'm really excited to see how this one comes out. So I'm going to prep my workbench real quick. I left it messy from yesterday, which I'm trying to get into better practice of like tidying up my tools and keeping them nice and organized. There we go. That's much better. Okay, so I put the kiln on and get my apron on. Sorted. And make a cup of tea for my workbench. I can't work without a cup of tea. Lovely. So it is 10:40 now, so I imagine we'll be doing this up until about lunchtime. So now we're going to make our little oyster chess piece, and I'm hopefully going to show you how I do this in more detail. And as I'm making 5 of these, I'm going to do this in stages. So I'm going to start by making the shell pieces. So it's two bits of shell for each piece. So I'm going to make 10 in total. So it's going to be this outer color here and this like transparent pink. Starting with the outside, we've got this marbled gray glass color. So this is soft glass. So I'll show you what I mean by like this one's a lot more shocky. So it's got a lower melting temp. So if I don't like strike the glass into the flame, if I don't slowly heat it up, it does this. It pings off. So with soft glass, it's really important that I kind of slowly heat up the rod and then I can start working with it. By comparison, this is a rod of borosilicate. It looks very similar, but this one is actually a much harder glass. This is the kind of glass that you use for like making lab equipment with, which you can just heat up immediately and it doesn't go into thermal shock. So that's why I kind of like wince a bit on camera a little bit, is that with the soft glass, I'm always slightly more prepared for it to actually like go into shock like that. There we go. So now the glass is warm enough so it can actually start to melt and we can start working with it. To make the shell, I'm building up a kind of gather like this. And then I am pressing it down into this graphite slab here until I get that. So just kind of a flat little disc. And I'm going to do that about 4 or 5 times. So the glass gets this kind of rippled texture effect in the back. So I'll do that again and push. So you can see that kind of rippled texture coming through now. So this is the front part of it. This will be the inside of the shell, and then that's the back. That's the right sort of size. I don't want to go much bigger than that. So now I'm going to add this kind of like transparent semi-opaque pink and dabbing this on the inside. Now we've got this blob here, so I'm going to press this down into the graphite to smooth it out like this. It looks very clear at the moment, but as it cools and like goes through the annealer, it will start to bring out that more pinkish kind of pigment to it. Now I want to shape the shell, so I'm going to use my tweezers, heating one side of it and pushing these actually just down like this. And I'm going to do that 5 times all the way around. So it looks more like this. And I don't try to perfect this too much. The more organic it looks and the more textured, I think the more realistic it actually comes out. So this is the part where it's going to connect to the other part of the shell. So this I'm just going to angle a little bit so it's a bit more sort of triangular. Just slightly like this. The last part of the shaping, I'm going to just soften the edges and use my tweezers to kind of furl it to get the ripple shape. So there is the bottom part of our shell, and I'm going to put the little pearl on the inside. So this is the double helix I was talking about earlier. This is our metallic glass, and I'm very interested to see how this comes out. So just to see how this is going to come out, I'm going to heat the end of it, and I'll fan it out a little bit too so we can see it a little bit better. So small gather like so, and then just pinch it into a disc. There we go. Like this. Now I want to oxidize the glass, and to do that I'm just going to turn up the oxygen here on my torch and then put it through the flame like this. There we go, I can see the colour starting to come through now. So it comes out this rainbow metallic-y kind of shade like that, which for a pearl I think is going to look very pretty, so I'm going to give this a try. So while I was trialing the double helix, I put that part of the shell in the kiln as I didn't want it to break, so now I'm working on the second part of the shell and we'll attach the pearl to this one. I swear these ones get better every single time. There, so that's the other side finished. And now we can put on our shiny little pearl. And I'm going to try and center it a bit more this time, so as I kind of fold the shell in a little bit more, you can still see it nicely. So I'm going to put it more about there. And looks good, I think. There it is. And now we'll use our oxidizing flame to bring out those nice metallic colors. It's like a black pearl. Gosh. It's so shiny. Okay, so that one's now finished as well. I'm going to put this one in the kiln. Now I'm going to make the base for that one. For this, I'm going to use my brass mold. And have a quick sip of tea. Heating this up into a large gather, then smushing it into here, which will give that nice kind of textured effect, and doing that until it's thick enough. So this is what I've got at the moment. One side is thicker than the other, so I'm going to transfer this onto another punty so I can work it from the other side and straighten it out. Just connect these sides like this and take this side off. Now we can go from this side and then smush it in this way. Ta-da! Right, I'm happy with that. So next is making the little kind of body part that attaches the base to the actual like clam. And this bit's really simple. I just build up a gather and then plonk it onto this end. And building it up more and more until I get the right kind of thickness, which I think that's about right. Now I have to pull it out nice and evenly, which because this is soft glass is actually a little tricky. It's so liquidy, kind of watery compared to boro, which is a lot more stiff and rigid and gives you actually a lot more kind of control. So I'll just do this nice and slowly until I get it right. Yeah, I'm happy with that, that looks good. Now I can just assemble it all together, which is honestly the part that like kind of scares me the most. So I'll put on our bottom half, which is with our little pearl. Stick these two bits together. make sure it's a nice connection, but that it's also relatively straight too, which is what I really struggled with yesterday. This is leaning forward quite a lot though, so I want to move this back a bit. There we go. I'm not sure if you'll notice much over the camera, but I can see quite a difference here. Now I can add the top part. And we're going to have this a little bit more closed over than we did in the first one. Like that. Now I've got to get this off the punty and get the whole thing into the kiln. So hopefully I can do this, because this one looks absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy with how this is looking at the moment. It's keeping the whole thing hot without it cracking, but also not overheating it so that parts of it fall off or morph in shape. There we go. Let's put that in the kiln. Oh gosh, it's always so nerve-wracking. Cup of tea, sip of tea. That clam, that oyster like shell was a lot more closed in, which made it really did make it look a lot more realistic. And the pearl is super cute. Like there's lots of different kinds of double helix out there that gives you different kind of shimmers and stuff. So it'd be really fun to play around with that a bit more. So the time is now 11:20. So that didn't take me actually not too long to make. So now I'm gonna do another 4 of them, probably taking a couple of breaks in between. So I'm gonna make all the shells first. I'm gonna do like 8 shells back to back with the pearls. So we'll do that first. I like that on one of those shells it was a little bit kind of longer rather than wide, and for oyster, real life oyster shells, they are kind of naturally longer in shape. So I'm trying to kind of do this. I think that's already a much better shape. And then using the tweezers to fan out. And I'm not using the tweezers like tweezers for this actually, I'm kind of just more pressing down and using the flat part of it, which leaves nice little kind of grooves and impressions. Now that the shell's taken its shape, adding the pink inside. Last time I squished it all together and then shaped it. I'm doing it a slightly different order this time, but it'll be interesting to know doing it in which order works best and what gives it a better effect. So this is maybe not a better way to do it. It's smoothing out really nicely, but then it's also heating up the outer shell, and I'm losing a lot of the definition that I just made. So I need to now put that back in. So I think doing it the other way around is better, but now I know. But as these are so kind of organically shaped, it hasn't ruined anything to do it this way at all. Now putting in those little wavy ridges at the ends. I think this is my favorite part. And doing them one way then the other way seems to look more natural to me. Makes it look more gnarly and organic rather than uniform. So trying to change it up. Beautiful. I'm going to put the pearl on this one. I'll really zoom this one right in so you can see what's happening. I'm still trying to work out the best camera angles for this as I'm working. So making sure both are heated. This one's turning into a bit of a gather. And we want it more central like we did it last time. So putting it about there. melting it down so it takes more of a circular shape, letting gravity do a lot of the work. Just kind of spinning it all around so it'll sit the way I want it to, like that. Now we're going to change it to an oxidizing flame, put a lot more oxygen into it like that. And then you should see that metallic shimmer come out of the glass. It's so beautiful. That is the shell now finished. So we'll get it off the rod. So it leaves that bit there, which for the shell looks actually pretty great. I don't quite want that much, so I'm just taking little bits off at a time until we have that. And now that's ready for the kiln. Now making the top shell and aiming for that longer shape, the oyster shape. There, I'm happy with the shape. Adding the pink inlay first. Give it a smush. Now for the shaping. Press. I just want to make like glass oysters forever now. This is amazing. Add a little shaping. Ta-da! Both shells are in the kiln now, so let's make the base. And the base of the last one, I think that's where things go a little bit wrong, in that all the other elements I'm really happy with. The base though is always a little bit wonky, or it looks a little kind of blobbish. And it's definitely because like I'm rushing at the very end. I want to keep it hot, I want to get it in the kiln as soon as possible, so that's where I lose a little control. So for this one, I'm going to try and do it a little bit slower and make sure that my heating is kind of more even. Hopefully that way the whole thing will look really refined and there's no like imperfections to it, or like wibbliness where there's not supposed to be any. The base is also the thickest part of glass, so this is the part that's a lot more likely to crack and go into thermal shock. So that's why I try to do it as quickly as I can. If I was working with borosilicate for this, I wouldn't be nearly as worried about it. And I've ever really only used soft glass for beadwork. I limited it to only that purpose, for really making jewelry, not so much for sculpting work. So now knowing I can make these smaller pieces and practice my sculpting skills with glass that has just so much better color range in my opinion, and is just ultimately cheaper to buy in as someone who is just practicing, this is amazing. One side of the base done, now I'm going to move over to the other side. There we are. And add the body. Okay, I'm feeling a bit more controlled with this one, I'm not rushing it as much. Now I'm going to try to connect all the pieces. Bottom of the shell first. To center this more in the middle. Keeping an eye on that thick part of the base as well so it doesn't crack. top part. Make sure it's got a good connection. Okay. Oh, I had a crack. Okay, I think that was the base. It might be fine in that I'm heating this up now, which might smooth out any cracks inside, but we won't know for sure until it's finished. Oh no, it's the shell, I can see it. Oh, that's a shame. Okay, I might have been able to fix it. It might have also taken a bit of the silvery metallic shimmer off of our pearl. Okay, we'll have to see. It looked like I had smoothed out the crack quite well there. Obviously soft glass has a low temperature, so it's quite easy and quick to heat up. And it didn't seem to lose any shape, so I'm hoping we saved that one, but we won't know until it comes out. 3 more. With this project, I love making all the elements. I think making each part is absolutely fine. It's definitely just connecting them at the end that's the struggle at the moment. But all the connections look fantastic. Nothing looks like it's gonna fall off or fall apart. This one's got a slight kind of curve to it. Got my pearl on. Do the thing. Pretty. Couldn't you just eat that? The glass is starting to like crack and break off quite a bit. I think I'm starting to just get a little bit tired. So after I finish making this shell, I'm gonna stop and take like a 10-minute coffee break. Because yeah, this is where it starts going a little bit wrong, and it's just me getting tired, that's all it is. I'm not even sure if this shell is actually gonna be salvageable, we'll see. It's fine. There, that one's ready for the kiln too, and now we'll take a break. And that is just 12 o'clock. So that's 2 made, and the third one like halfway there. So I think we're doing quite well today. So this is a good time to go outside and actually have like a breath of fresh air. So I'll head out towards the field, and it's very nice and peaceful out here. So I'll spend about 10-15 minutes just out here, chilling, and hopefully I get all my oysters made. It's 12:30 now, and I've actually got a meeting with the Corning Museum of Glass Institute at 3 o'clock. So I've got to wrap up here about 1:30, drive home, get my laptop and stuff sorted, have some lunch and do a bit of prep before the meeting. But it means I've got about an hour until I need to leave. So hopefully we can do it. Okay, let's go back in. So now I'm going to try to go for precision and speed. So I'm going to get my tunes on, and then hopefully we'll be finished in 1 hour. So I've just finished, they're all in there. So that's all 5 of them in there. And it is 1:45, so we've got to go. So we'll close everything up and get to the office. So I had my meeting, it is now 10 to 7 and I'm heading back to the studio. And then we can look at our oysters. All right, let's go in. Okay, let's take a look at you guys. Oh, So this is the first one. The double helix looks beautiful. And that shell, like, wow. Very strong start, number one. Number two, also bloomin' exceptional. I mean, just, yeah, and closing the shell over that little bit really does just, like, give it that extra mwah. And the bases are lovely and straight, too. Very good, number two. Number three. Oh, that one made a little tink noise. So this might be the one that that had a crack in the shell, perhaps? Yeah, I can't see the crack anywhere. So my guess is that it's not in the transparent base, because normally that's quite easy to spot. So I think it probably is maybe the shell. But, like, I mean, appearance-wise, very nice. The only critique of this one is that the internal bit, this pink bit, like, doesn't quite reach over to this side of the shell quite so well. But other than that, pretty darn happy with it. So I'll make sure to put you over here. You're the crackly one. Okay, number four. So this one has a very large top part, so it's actually quite tall. And the pearl on this one isn't quite as shiny as the others. I should have used maybe a more oxidized flame on this one. And the pink again could go over this way a little bit more on this side of the shell on the interior. So, and the base is ever so slightly wonky. So I think out of all of them, this is maybe the one that needed the most work. But I'm still very happy with it. And last one, number five. A very strong finish. I think this one's the most rounded out of all of them. And the shell interior doesn't quite go to the edges, but then it's uniform kind of on both, so it looks like it's just supposed to be like that. But I like that in some of the later ones, it actually fans right out to the edges a bit more. And the base is a little wibbly. You can kind of see the little, like, curve in it here. But the pearl looks beautiful. So again, like, very happy. And compared to the original one, number one, where are you? Oh, sorry, no, he's over here. So this is the very first one I made. Like, the difference between this shell and this shell is just ridiculous. Like, this one almost looks more like a chair, whereas that one, I mean, that one's an oyster, isn't it? These are just so much fun to make. I adore these. This one is definitely my favorite. So this is going to be our final for our chessboard. But you were all very strong contestants, guys. Good job. I would honestly love to make these, like, life-size oysters with, like, without the chest part. Just make a little glass clam. I might do that next, honestly, because I love this so much. So that is now a wrap for today. My meeting with Corning went really well. It only lasted about 30 minutes, but they told me all about a 2-year course, which covers a whole range of glass applications, flameworking being one of them, also doing kiln and furnace work and cold work as well. And there are scholarships as well that I could apply for, but it would mean moving to the States. And with having, like, a young child and my own studio here at the moment, there's a lot to think about. So it is 7:30 now. I need to actually go and pack because tomorrow I'm heading to the Scottish Maritime Museum to go and have some training with the scientific glassblowers there. So I'll need my rest for that. So that is the end of May 9th, 2024. It was a good one.